Welcome to the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. I'm your host, Eric Smith. On today's episode, we're joined by Dr. David Cook, president of Iowa State University. He shares his journey back to Ames to lead his alma mater, his leadership approach, and how Iowa State is building on its land-grant mission to drive innovation, workforce development, and economic impact across the state. This episode is presented by Flynn Wright, Iowa's premier full-service advertising agency, serving clients from coast to coast for over 40 years. Experts in crafting stories that sell, Flynn Wright prides itself on helping brands drive performance and stay one step ahead. Dr. David Cook, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I just said right when you sat down, I mean, you are everywhere these days, but I really appreciate you taking time. I mean, you are now a month officially into your new role as president of Iowa State University, but from what I've seen from afar, you started well before that. But how has, this year been going for you so far?
Yeah, it's been going great, having a lot of fun, learning a lot. You mentioned, while it's been a month, I was offered the job back in November, and President Winterstein was really good. She continued to reach out and allowed me to be connected, and I made a few trips back and forth, and her team put together a big old binder with all kinds of homework, so... and then she handed the baton off to David Spalding, who was the interim president, kind of just kept going. And so while March 1st was day one, I did really have a number of months where the team here, whoever was going to be president, they were going to make sure they were well prepared. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Well, I believe that. But I mean, seriously, I see you everywhere, and I see some of it on social media. But I mean, I've crossed paths with you at different events, and it just seems like you are saying yes to absolutely everything right now. I would imagine that is deliberate and strategic, and you're just embracing this learning by a fire hose for the first couple months.
Yeah, that's right. And probably a little bit more because, I am here early and wanting to gather as much information as I can early in my tenure. But I will also tell you, this is probably going to be my MO, the way I do things too. I mean, I'm going to be out in the community, out on campus, meeting people, listening, building relationships. And from all of that, I think I can be a better president.
So let's back up a bit. I mean, part of what we talk about on the Area Podcast is, your personal story, but not only that, but your professional journey. I mean, you are from Ames, and I know that's kind of been part of the messaging of you coming home in many ways, but how surreal is that?
Even now, it's hard for me to answer that. I know that seems funny. I just have these moments where I'm like, did this really happen? And my wife and I even were like, really? So it's very surreal. We're very humbled, very honored to do it. Never was a plan or a goal of mine by any means. It just kind of worked its way out, and we're pretty fortunate and blessed to be back home.
So Ames native, Ames High School graduate, you went to Iowa State University, but then professionally, you went off to the University of Kansas, and you spent many years there, leadership roles at the medical center there, and then also in public affairs and economic development. But then most recently, and you can comment on any of all of this, but then more recently, you were the president of North Dakota State University before coming back to Iowa State.
Right. The only thing I would add is I was born in Ames to all that too. So I was born at Mary Greeley, for what it's worth. So
I think that's worth a lot.
So born here and went to high school here, and of course an alum, a graduate of Iowa State. So and from here I had a number of mentors and faculty who helped me out and opened up doors and allowed me to see things that I had not probably even thought were possible. And that's what led me to graduate school, faculty member here at Iowa State. Opened my eyes up to some things, and so went on to graduate school there, and eventually very proud of the work. My PhD work, I worked for an engineering firm in Shanghai, so I lived in Shanghai, China, and did kind of a classic East versus West business kind of study. This was in the 90s. But when I was in graduate school, I also had worked at the University of Kansas Medical Center quite often as a grad researcher. And so when I returned back to Shanghai, the person who oversaw the unit that I did a lot of work in, she left. I kind of got pulled in, and when I came back, I worked at the University of Kansas Medical Center, turned out for 14 years. but started there in the 90s in something called the Center for Telemedicine and Telehealth, which was really world-renowned, did a lot of work across rural Kansas, and now we talk about that. Back then, we didn't talk about how technology was augmenting healthcare, particularly in underserved areas, but that's where I got my, started there as a faculty member, worked in the School of Medicine there. That's where I was tenured as a faculty member. And just had a ton of people help me out along the way. A lot of my story is, probably getting stuck, not quite sure where to go, and a lot of mentors and people helping me out to show me there was something else out there. And so I'm very lucky to do that. I did do a year of fellowship at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill,
Okay.
And that was all about higher ed leadership. And so in some ways that might have been where I started thinking, okay, hey, maybe this leadership thing could be a possibility, maybe. And I'd had a lot of administrative experience along the way too, but I did that. I came back, and that's probably where I started thinking, well, I don't know about president, but something a little bigger than what I had done, and that's where I got started.
So then, how'd that get to North Dakota State? Then so when it became a maybe leadership. I mean, quickly then got to North Dakota State as president. Yeah, well, from the medical center, I went and ran a branch campus for the University of Kansas, had a couple thousand students right in Johnson County in the Kansas City area. So I was running a campus, so I was kind of a mini president. Then I, from there, became really the right-hand person at KU, they call it chancellor. At Iowa State, it's president, and really learned from him. He's still a great mentor and friend and colleague for me. He's still the chancellor at the University of Kansas, Doug Girod. And I learned from him how to do the job, or so I thought. I mean, until you do the job, you don't really know, I'll tell you. But I got a phone call and learned that there was a presidency job that was open up in North Dakota. And I did my first interview via laptop. It was during COVID. And I was sick. But for some reason I had the energy to do the interview, got through that. They invited me back up there, and this was a case where my wife and I went up there, and candidly, we fell in love with the people and fell in love with the university early on. And, so my time has been Iowa, Kansas, and North Dakota. These are all very similar types of states, politically similar, economically similar, all Midwest. Yeah. And we had no ties, but we went up there, and I guess I did okay. They offered me the job, and we've been up there for about the last 4 years. Well, not only okay, I would imagine, in the interview, but certainly, and I'm going to just go through a couple bullet points of while you were there. Stabilized enrollment while you were there. The retention rates, number of graduates certainly went up. You broke records around research and just sort of money spent in that regard as well. And so clearly there, you made a lasting impact while you were there as well, and then ultimately got on the radar of I will say, a lot of people here when that search began after President Winterstein announced her retirement. Yeah, well, like here, I had a great team, a lot of people working together, moving in the same direction. I think as far as leadership goes, having a talented team, people smarter and better than you are. I always joke, I walk in the room, I want the IQ to drop because you have so many people around you that are helping you out. And so the success we had up there, I think, was for sure. I had a great team, great people around me, very dedicated, passionate. And we did a lot of hard work, candidly, and feel really good about where we left it. And really, there's only one other job in America I would, really would want. It was coming back home to Iowa State. And so, again, very blessed and fortunate to have this kind of happen. Yeah. But also very proud of what we did there. How quickly did this come on your radar when President Winterstein announced her retirement? Or how quickly did people start calling you, maybe? Oh, that's funny. I suppose I might have started hearing about it early on and often. There was a great group, the Ames Alliance group led a bunch of folks up to Fargo and met. I already know a lot of people from Ames, or a little bit, right, of course, but a number of people who I'd never known went up to the Fargo area and in a kind of an exchange, and it was amazing to meet everyone there, learning more about what was happening in our community from that perspective. And then I started, building some relationships. So I might have even heard from some of them that there was a job opening, and so that's somewhere in there is when it caught my attention. I get it, but still, these are complicated processes. Just in that, you had a good gig going, and and everyone who applied for this position has a good role wherever they're at, and so it's this balance of jeopardizing some of that while also aspiring for that next role.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, for sure. I completely agree. It's a risk to put your name out there, and I think a lot of people in these positions are always a little worried about that. For me, again, there was really only one job that made sense, and it was coming home. Because it's home, but because of what Iowa State did for me in my career, all that it did, my parents did not go to college, so I say I'm a first-generation college student. Iowa State continues to serve first-generation college students. I think it's around 20% of our students coming in. That means you're changing lives and generations of lives. I believe in the power of education, and so I guess giving back a little bit to the institution that made such a difference in my life and my career, it was pretty special to think, maybe I can do that for somebody else, and so.
Well, that was interesting. I had not realized that until I read it. I mean, you being, the first to go to college in your family, I mean, do you remind yourself of that? I mean, I also didn't realize the 20%. That's a lot bigger number than what I would have anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, college is opening up the doors for individuals all the time. And so that's, in an interest of mine because if you're from, say, a smaller community in Iowa, right, coming to Ames and coming to Iowa State is a big step, and it's hard and it's overwhelming. And if we can create opportunities for those students to feel like they're at home, feel like they have something they might be intrigued by in terms of professionally studying, academically. And these are all things Iowa State's doing really well. We have learning communities that really help connect our students with amazing opportunities. And I think, candidly, create, you never quite know what you want to do when you're 18, and hopefully you don't in some ways. And we give those first generation students an opportunity to explore and think outside themselves. And that's one of the many things that makes Iowa State so special.
Well, let's talk about the student experience. How do you stay grounded to that experience? Because you are wearing a lot of hats. You get a lot of asks to go to a lot of things, to talk about a lot of topics. And ultimately, everything kind of goes to you and your role and your team and all of that. So it could be easy to lose sight of the fact that you're serving students because of all of the other things that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, as a president, especially of a land-grant institution, of course, you care about your mission, and it's education, research, service, serving the state, making a difference across the 99 county campus that you have at a land-grant at Iowa State. So all those things are special, but I would say the thing that really gets me most excited is our students and knowing what we're doing for them. But they keep you on your toes too, and I love that. And so from day one, and I will continue doing this, really being engaged with students is critical. In fact, this evening there's an event I'll go to that's all about students. I will go to all the different athletic events, that we've already been to performances. We've been to, Engineering Week. Last night I was at a different student event, going to continue to speak at student government. I mean, they're the ones that we need to talk to about how we're doing, how we can do better. And candidly, in this crazy world we live in with AI and all the rest, I have a feeling they probably have the solution to some of these things. So we need to really listen to them as well.
Well, because we're in the midst of it, we're going to come back to student experiences. But, you are within your first 100 days. And everyone picks the first 100 days because it's a nice, clean number. And, and clearly it starts before and it's going to go after. But what are your goals, say, in your first 100 days?
Right. So the Board of Regents has been pretty clear that in the June board meeting, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk to them a little bit about what my vision is. And so I'm buying the first 100 days, right?
Good for you.
To get out, there you go. To get out there and listen and learn and really try to lead the institution. But again, I've been a president. I've been a president of a land grant. I have ideas. I've made a lot of mistakes and learned along the way. And so I want to bring all that knowledge and expertise and experience with me. But whatever happened there might be different here, or maybe we tried it here and it worked or it didn't work. And so before presuming I have answers and solutions and strategies, I'm really trying hard to get out. And that's from the students, as we just said, but from our faculty and staff, and spent a lot of time already out across the state a little bit, and from all of our industries that are critical. And so I will continue to do that.
So then how do you filter all of these inputs that you're going to get? Because it's students, it's faculty, but it's the community, it's the business community,
Right.
it's nonprofits, but then that goes statewide across all 99 counties. So how do you filter all of these? Because eventually, you're going to go from the listening phase, and you're going to obviously continue to do that, but then you got to start making decisions and start showing that type of leadership in different ways.
Yeah.
How does that transition take place? That's not easy.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the secret sauce to all of this in a lot of ways, the analytics of taking a ton of information. What's kind of fun is on campus, I've already been meeting with groups, and we use an online tool so they can provide feedback. I stand up there and I say, well, why did you come up with this answer? And so gathering first, kind of impressions, talking with people when I'm there, hearing from them, that's powerful. But then also the analytics on the back end, the AI that's working there is putting things into themes. Yeah. And I'm doing a lot of that data gathering already. That will eventually help. All the in-person meetings, doing that data gathering, all that will eventually help. I'll be meeting with a lot of, already am, business groups, ag groups, and all the rest. So the data gathering is critical, but as you said, maybe the next step is the most critical. And so, again, I guess a little bit leaning on my experience, looking at the national landscape, trying to look ahead in terms of what's all changing. And then any good leader who is going to have some success has to have really smart, talented people around them, and I have that. And so I will lean a lot on them, pitch ideas back and forth to them, tell them what I'm thinking about. And I think that iterative process is what's going to lead to the analytics that'll lead to and we're not reinventing the wheel here either. I mean, President Winterstein set this place up for great success. And so I think it's just acknowledging the world is changing and making sure that we're evolving like any great institution has to do.
Well, the number of great things that are happening in the circles of Iowa State University, I mean, nearly endless. I mean, we couldn't even get through the start of it in this conversation. So you are absolutely correct in that you're walking into a wonderful situation. Well, you mentioned your team. Tell me a bit about your team and like sort of the dynamics and particularly, how these decisions, how does that back and forth take place? I've read that, you like to surround yourself with people who are going to disagree with you and they're going to challenge you. I think, obviously that is very smart. So how does that play out?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. I mean, I genuinely, and I said this earlier, want people around me who are subject matter experts who are willing to give me the feedback that maybe I don't want to hear. I would say just about in any organization, it's going to be impossible to be an expert in all the different verticals. So in higher education, that could be anything from, finance to budget to HR to student success to academic affairs to just think operations, facility, the list goes on and on. I mean, you're going to have a certain amount of expertise based on your personal experience, but you can't be an expert in all those things. Yeah. And so that's where it's critical to have a group around you who you trust, who are willing to do hard things, who have courage. I think that's critical. And so for us, we have a senior leadership team that meets twice a week for about an hour. And that's where we are constantly kind of, I think, grinding through a lot of the key issues. But there's also a president's leadership group it's a couple hundred people that I've met with now one time and presented some of my initial thinking around listening and learning. And those are the kind of groups that you need to have out there. You have your different, in higher ed, you're going to have your different shared governance groups, and I've been meeting and working with them and giving them the opportunity to provide pretty candid feedback. Yeah. Also, all the different, so I'm meeting with all the different academic deans and their groups and their leadership groups, and so the list goes on and on. But I mean, a big part of it is putting yourself out there, making sure that you are listening, giving them the opportunity to share information and letting them know it's okay to share that. And especially, it isn't necessarily tell me what I don't want to hear about what's best for the institution. Yeah. So.
President Winterstein, well, I mean, she sat in this chair. We had a conversation last year, and I asked her the question of, like, what didn't you anticipate? Because you had referenced how you don't know the role. Like, you can be adjacent to the role, but you don't know it until you sit in it. And her response was really funny because I'm paraphrasing, but she said, I didn't realize how much time I was going to spend with our legal team. That was her response.
That's funny, yeah.
I would imagine, You're already in that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Well, and again, as I was, she's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky to be following her and the great things that she did. So the question is, what didn't I anticipate? Is that what you're, if I were to go back when I became a president the first time, I would say I was the right-hand person to the chancellor. I knew what he did every single day. I was often involved. My running joke with him was I was the B team. When he couldn't be there, he would send me, and that would be a presentation, maybe send out across state, what have you. So you have that experience, and you feel like and then you get put in the job, and candidly, you don't. I mean, you just the weight of things is different.
It is,
and so I'm fortunate coming into this job to have some of that experience that is unique. That I feel more comfortable than I did before. The things that have really got my attention here are very positive. So, no, I am not spending a lot of time with the legal folks yet. Maybe that's next week. I don't know, as President Winterstein said, but. I love our Innovate brand. I love our focus on entrepreneurship. A lot of organizations and institutions have a brand, but do they really live up to it? And I am just blown away that how we do. Our Student Innovation Center is second to none. That is unique anywhere in the country. You're not going to see something like that. And the amount of work that we do around entrepreneurship across all disciplines is real and significant. We were just awarded a top 10, ranking by the Princeton Review, which is very important. So that's one thing that I've just been incredibly impressed with, that we kind of walk the talk and live up to that brand.
Well, I find it interesting in how embedded that was from the beginning, and that was, by choice and design, how embedded that was in all of the colleges, that entrepreneurship mentality.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's part of the curriculum. I've been to these pitch competitions already, watching our students pitch an idea, pitch a product, and they're phenomenal. Yeah. I keep thinking, well, maybe someday I'll go work for that student in that company that they're about ready to start. They're that good. So proud of that. Even a fun thing, 4-H was here at Hilton, and they brought their science and technology kind of conference, and this was young men and women, 6th grade through 12th grade, all filled up, the main floor of the Hilton Coliseum. And, they're pitching research ideas and concepts, which just the entrepreneurial thinking that our 4-H folks are already pushing out to young students and young kids in our state is critical. And then, a lot of those kids come here, and you can tell they're light years ahead. It's
great
special.
branding for the university as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we love that. So, yeah.
So how valuable, when we talk about professional journeys, I find the concept of, looking back, and you can very clearly see that each role that you've had throughout your career, contributed and led to the next role. And you talked about how that leadership, particularly when you're president and everything then falls on you, it can get heavy at times. How valuable, I'd imagine it did at some point at NDSU, but how valuable will that experience be moving forward? I mean, you're probably still in honeymoon phase of soaking it all in here and experiencing all of the things Iowa State. Yeah. Eventually, it's not as new.
Yeah, well, agree. I mean, and by the way, the honeymoon, it's a great place to be. I'm going to be honest.
Soak it up.
Well, I mean, I'm imagining and re-understanding and living what Iowa State is. I mean, I've always known, I've always been a Cyclone and always been very proud. And then you come back here and I continue to have these wow moments like, wow, we do that? Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. And so the institution has really grown and expanded and evolved in ways that I didn't know about. And so that's a lot of fun for me. There's no question. When it comes down to, being overwhelmed or having a tough day, I think that's what you're alluding to, or struggling or challenging. It does. You do have those mentors who opened up door after door after door for me, which was critical. I was very fortunate. I mentioned I spent a year at UNC Chapel Hill as part of a higher ed leadership program. That was an opportunity, too, for me to have professional growth that was critical. And, oh, by the way, I have a group of people who went through that with me, who every now and again I can call on. But I also have a number of mentors who are presidents at other universities who, when you just don't know quite where to turn, I'm a phone call away from probably a half dozen to a dozen people who I can call. And that's really, really helpful. And so I'm lucky. I've had a lot of people help me out on the way. I'm lucky a lot of people will still take my call. And again, the local folks here are absolute rock stars too.
Well, I would imagine that a way to continue to stay grounded and maybe in that honeymoon phase, even though several years from now you can't call it that, is just continuing to be engaged in all of the things, and you had already talked about that, but going to pitch competitions, going to sporting events, going to everything else that you get invited to, it has a way of keeping you grounded and motivated and maybe even more so reminded of all of the amazing things that are happening.
Yeah, I got to tell you, that's absolutely true. I was recently right out at the research park. Number one, because Bayer is expanding, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
And I will say, the lead person from Bayer stated Iowa State is the best university in the country at building these industry partnerships. I've heard that from Deere specifically saying that, and so. But you got to be there. You got to show up. You got to hear these industry partners or students or faculty, express the great work that they're doing, but also, watching it happen. And there's no way to do that sitting in your office. You got to get out there and meet with them. And so that's always going to be a big part of my leadership style. But another critical part of that is eventually the honeymoon period will end. Hopefully it'll last longer, but I'm going to have to start making tough decisions like any leader. And sometimes it's an 80-20 decision, and, you can decide on that. Sometimes it's 60-40, sometimes it's 50-50. And, sometimes I might have to take, a less popular decision. But based on the information I have, I think it's the right one based on and you can't always share everything that you know for a lot of reasons when you're a leader. But part of it is getting out there and meeting people, helping everybody know that you're there for them. I'm advocating for Iowa State. I care about this place every bit as much as they care about the institution. And there is an element of building trust, which takes time because I'm not always going to make the decision they want, but hopefully they can at least believe I'm making it with the best interests of the institution in mind. So they'll give me a little grace on that. But, call me back in a year and we'll see how I've done on that.
This episode of the Area Podcast is sponsored by...
You have a story to tell. That story has a job to do, to be seen, to be heard, to sell, to find inspiration and insight, to use persuasion to change behavior, to turn strategy into tactics, tactics into action, to sell. Nobody does that better than Flynn Wright.
Welcome to Bethany Life.
At the Households of Bethany, we offer thoughtfully designed services through transitional, respite, memory, and long-term care, centered on dignity, respect, and quality of life.
At Timberland Village, we offer independent and assisted living, as well as our twin homes.
Life Choices at Bethany is our life care at home model, offering personalized support in your moment of need brought right to your doorstep. And with Bethany at Home, we extend compassionate care and support wherever home may be.
Learn more at BethanyLife.org. Bethany Life, built on hope, wellness, and compassion.
At Northcrest Community, we've made a lot of changes in the last 60 years, but the best things have remained the same. I'm Dawn Borwig, CEO of Northcrest, and I want to tell you why. When you choose Northcrest, you're beginning a new stage of fulfilling, worry-free living. Say goodbye to the burden of home maintenance and hello to an active, engaged community. As the only nonprofit, locally owned and operated community in Ames, we guarantee you a home and our care for the rest of your life. When your needs change, you stay right here, in your community, near your friends and your family. At Northcrest, no one is ever asked to leave because of a lack of funds. That's our nonprofit mission. That's the Life Care Promise. Our residents will tell you, don't wait, don't put it off. Come enjoy all the benefits Northcrest Living has to offer. To learn more, visit our website at northcrestcommunity.org or call to schedule your tour with Kimberly today.
Just south of Iowa State University, in the heart of the Midwest, sits the Iowa State University Research Park, 550 acres of opportunity and innovation. With over 1 million square feet of developed space, it's home to more than 145 tenant companies, from startups to global leaders. Discover innovation hubs, collaborative spaces, and a community that's shaping the future. Whether you're scaling up or starting fresh, ISU Research Park has room to grow. Visit isupark.org to learn more.
So you coming on and making the decision to be the 17th president of Iowa State University, certainly it was your decision, but it was a decision that you had to weigh with not only yourself in isolation, but your wife as well, who is with you at a lot of events. I mean, this is a lifestyle gig that really requires, if you can have a partner in that lifestyle, it certainly is helpful. Talk about Katie a little bit.
Well, yeah, I would first say, presidents, there's a lot of different ways to tackle these jobs. There's no one right way. I've, with all the people who have mentored me over the years, I've learned a little bit from all of them. And I don't think there has to be a role in a presidency for the spouse necessarily. And that's great. I will be honest, at North Dakota State, this is something my wife and I kind of grew into and started to understand. She has certain passions. And a lot of those are around students, candidly. And so, as we are both here, we made the decision together. There's no question about that. I think where you'll see us, it's around what can we do to support. I mean, showing up at student events, being there, talking to them, telling them they're doing a great job, letting them know that, if they want to see us at the dining halls, for example. We're already going to dining halls quite a bit. It's so much fun. I mean, students will walk up and sit down and talk with you.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Our kids told us not to do that years ago. They said don't sit down next to them. And I thought, no, we're cool. We can sit down next to them. They want to talk to us. So instead, we'll just sit down, and if they choose to sit down with us, so those are the kind of things that my wife has her PhD in early childhood special ed, working with kids with autism and Asperger's, and she has had her academic career and has worked in the K-12, and so she's an expert in her own right and has her passions, and so she might be drawn to some of those kind of things. But for sure, I think when we're working together, it's going to be how can we, really focus in on students or just support people here. If it's a faculty, if it's a lecture series and we can go together to tell people we care and listen and learn and then advocate, those are the kind of things I think we will do together. She also has a deep passion for horses, so beware. I mean, I'm always nervous I'm going to learn we bought a second horse or something because she's been talking with our equine folks. But so, but it's a team effort. There's no question about that. And she's going to have her affinities and we're going to do some things together around those, and that's pretty fun.
Well, I know this from experience. I mean, my wife and I, we've worked together for as long as we've been married, and, there really is, you can talk about having an inner circle at work and that senior leadership, and you can certainly have candid conversations, but nothing compares to the candor of those types of conversations at home as well. So
Yep. You need somebody there who's going to keep you grounded. There's no question.
So if we go back to the student experience, there's been this talk of this enrollment cliff, and certainly Iowa State, it's on your radar. It's something that you think about all the time. And yet, for the past several years, I know that Iowa State's enrollment not only has been stable, but has been going up slightly, which is a testament to, certainly the work of the previous administration, but it's something that you have to be top of mind for you as well.
Yeah, enrollment's going to be critical at Iowa State, but pretty much most universities in the Midwest. And so I think it's been 5 years in a row where Iowa State has kind of steadily increased, and that's a real testament to President Winterstein and all the leaders who are stepping up. Enrollment is something that everybody on campus has a part of. I mean, literally everybody from the groundskeepers, making sure it looks the campus looks the way we want it to look when people are visiting, all the way up to faculty who are maybe welcoming a potential new student, but also the way they teach and make them feel special. They're going to pass that on to family members and friends. I mean, it's staff, it's all across the board. The challenge, of course, with enrollment right now in the Midwest is what we call the enrollment cliff. And basically that means fewer kids were born 18 years ago, right? And that's going to be a challenge for the next couple of years. And everybody is aware of it. And It's a very competitive market in Minnesota. They passed the Minnesota North Star Promise up there because they were just too many of their high school kids were leaving the state. And in this case, if you're from a family graduating from a public high school your family made less than, I think it's $80,000 or $90,000 a year, you can go to a public college or university in the state of Minnesota tuition free.
Oh,
huge.
yeah.
In Minnesota, we get a lot of students from Minnesota to come to Iowa and Iowa State. And so, but you're starting to see those kind of things happening everywhere. So we have to be even more diligent. It's one thing to recruit these freshmen and to come, but we've also done an amazing job with transfer students. Community college kids love to come to Iowa State. Yeah. That's a real testament to how we've worked hard, but also I think how our values line up with them. And so very proud of that. And then a huge part of this that probably people don't talk about enough is keeping the students that are here and having them stay here and then having them graduate sooner. And these are all metrics Iowa State is hitting. So if you put all this energy into a freshman coming in August, we want them to come back as a sophomore in August the following year. We call that retention or progression toward a degree. And that's a real investment in the student success story. And so our leaders here and people, our professional advisors, and what we're doing in the classroom and what we're doing in learning communities and how we're welcoming them in the residence halls. And darn it, the dining hall better have great food and all the rest. Yeah. These are all metrics that are all moving in the right direction here. That's pretty important and special.
So I'll combine a number of topics and kind of going off of what you just said. Part of that, let me back up. I haven't been, ingrained in the higher ed, leadership, but to say that you want to get students through the university faster feels a lot different than probably the message of, say, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And is that a result of just the landscape has changed? So when we talk about, there's less kids that were, born 18 years ago, the advent of AI, the workforce is vastly different than what it was 15 years ago. I mean, is it just all those different types of layers that are all kind of just coalescing together in many ways?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the world is evolving in a lot of different ways in higher ed. There's been a pretty critical narrative about higher ed in the last, maybe during that time frame you described. And I think it's a fair critique to a great extent. And I think where you're seeing our success with students and enrollment sends a message that, we've heard that and we've evolved and we're doing really well. So I'm very proud of the work that's been done here even before I arrived. But we've got to keep evolving and keep growing and making sure those students are going to be successful. What I hear from our undergrad students in the time I'm interacting with them, they care about affordability. We got to make sure that this is something they can attain. And we do a great job with scholarships. Yeah. Almost half of our students graduate with no debt. Love it if all of them graduated with no debt, of course, right? Yeah. So, but that's going to be critical, the kind of work we do. And we want them to get through the funnel to be successful. The other thing you hear is that, guess what? They want a job. So does mom and dad when they're done. Yeah. We want them to learn and grow and experience things that they don't know anything about. In my visits to all these colleges, what's been fun is I always have these moments where I'm like, I just was visiting, our industrial design program out of the College of Design, and I'm just so blown away by what they do. And I thought, man, if I knew that was a career when I was 18, maybe I would have thought about that. So we still want our students to be able to survey and see what's out there. But we also want them to get through in 4 years, 5 years, and to continue to do better with those metrics. Students also are coming in with a lot more college credit.
Yeah.
So that allows them, they've already been surveying a little bit, but it gives them a few more options when they get here to explore a little bit. Yeah. So all those things are, I think, all part of the recipe for their success.
How have you seen students coming in, say, like as freshmen and their preparations in high school? How have you seen that evolve over your time in higher ed? Because certainly, you can lean on your, decades of experience where you've seen this evolution of student preparation.
Well, yeah, there's lots of different ways. I mean, the students today are very different, I think, than from previous generations. One thing is the advent of students taking more college credit in high school. There's a lot more of that happening today than in the past. And so, that means students are coming in a lot more aware, hopefully more prepared, and have maybe explored something and learned that's not the way they want to go. I remember our daughter, she thought she wanted to be a veterinarian when she was in high school and took some classes that were college level classes and learned that she didn't want to be a veterinarian after that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's what, that's part of the journey for all of them. And so then it's just also just trying to evolve with the expectations of students today. I mean, right now, a big part of that is around technology and AI.
Yeah.
How have they been learning to leverage that and embrace it for their learning? And as an institution, AI is a little scary, right? For everybody, for every industry. I get it.
It is.
But we also have to figure out if we want to lead and be on the cutting edge, we've got to really think about how we embrace AI. And especially with these students coming in, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they need to learn it while they're here, because when they leave the institution, it's going to be a big part of their lives. And so just continuing to evolve with, how students learn is always going to be a critical part of what we need to do.
One of the unique things that I think Iowa State has, and we've talked about it on this podcast with various guests, is the desire for private businesses and industry to want to be adjacent to Iowa State University. I mean, it's unlike most universities, I would imagine, across the country. And how does that connect with, say, the student experience? So like there's this research going on at the university, and you can talk some about that. But, we have the research park, and we have students integrated throughout it.
Yeah, so we interact with industry in all kinds of different ways, right? So, and that's going to be critical. We have career service groups across all of our different colleges as an example that have great relationships. And every time I feel like I'm going to an event, you're going to see a presence or a sponsorship or engagement from industry across all of our different colleges. So that's something that I think is very special at Iowa State. And I mentioned earlier the research park. So Iowa State's research park has been out there for some time and is really viewed as throughout the Midwest is kind of the best.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was at the University of Kansas, we were trying to build out ours. We went to Iowa State because it was the best. When I was at NDSU, we came and looked at what we really looked at what Iowa State's doing because it's the best. And we are engaging companies, bringing them on to into the park and on campus. Beyond that, they want workforce. They do. They want to meet our students. They want to create internship opportunities, but they also want to lean on our faculty to innovate and try new ideas and industry sponsored research in that regard. I mean, there's a layer of reasons why they're all here, and I'm going to tell you, this is something Iowa State is excellent at doing, and it's just part of the DNA of the institution.
I find it fascinating that, during COVID, everything was remote, and, AI is certainly inevitable and will be ingrained in nearly everything that we do over time. And yet there is still this desire for businesses to want to be close. The adjacency does not go away. They want to be here because there are things that can't be replicated from thousands of miles away. And that's really promising to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I mean, they want to meet the students. They know how critical it is to work in teams and be a good communicator and knowing how to build relationships and being a critical thinker. And one of the great ways to be able to, what I would really think of, those are your arts and sciences, your humanities, your social sciences skills that you get uniquely from that college and from a lot of our first and second year courses. And so, but business and industry gets it. It's critical to be technically skilled.
Yeah.
Right. We get that. You need to be an expert, but it's also critical in how you work and interact with others. And that's what you get when you invest, right there in the park or invest in programs on campus.
This is probably multiple hats, but I'm going to kind of combine it into one theme here. Another thing that certainly has to be top of mind for you or you get engaged with a lot is it's just working with external stakeholders. And sometimes that includes fundraising. Sometimes that includes engaging the legislature. Tell me about that role that you're certainly embracing already, but will continue to be top of mind for you.
Yeah, that's a critical role for a president. in some ways, the president's role really is external, right? And we have a number of people who focus internally. Now, it's all, as a president, it all falls onto you, so don't get me wrong, but you probably play in that external space more than all other positions on a campus. And so, yeah, from a fundraising perspective, that's critical. We have alumni, not always alumni, but people who love our institution and they want to give back because it changed their lives. And so we have our foundation is a separate 501c3 here. Incredible leadership there, an incredible board that helps guide leadership there of Board of Governors. And these are people who in many ways, I'm already leaning on them, whether they realize it or not, to get some advice and feedback and help me think about the future of the institution. And so there's lots of different ways you engage alumni. Candidly, some of our athletic success is a great way to be around our alumni who care deeply. And so that's critical. When it comes to providing scholarships, helping with facilities, endowing deans and chairs and faculty, that's where our donors make a huge difference, really a huge difference. So that's one of the big stakeholder groups, of course. An interesting one I'll weave in here, you mentioned it in your previous question too, is just really engaging federally. This last summer was a challenging time because there's just a lot of uncertainty around federal research. And we have a great VPR at our institution. We have these amazing researchers who, through that time, really pivoted. And we continue to work with our federal delegation. And I've, been introduced to them and very excited about learning from them what the future holds. There's new ideas that are coming out of DC about how we pivot and think about where we fund and where we're at there. Our federal funding has continued to go up, which in this day and age is pretty remarkable. Yeah. So kudos to our leadership there. And the Ames National Lab is something that we do not talk about enough. Yeah. One of, I think, 17 national labs, an amazing storied history. They had a ribbon cutting here not too long ago where people are pretty excited about their role in research, of course, but in supply chain and in national defense. All these things are huge. And we're uniquely qualified to really move the needle there. So that's a group we probably don't talk about enough, candidly. And then, community leaders, town gown, that's critical. That's why I'm here. I want to hear from you what the university does well and what we can do better. And then certainly the legislature is, they're our biggest funder. They're going to be, it's a role I've played in all of my previous leadership roles at state and federally, but I'm referring here to the state legislature. And I believe with all my heart, we all want what's best for our state, what's best for the university, how we can impact, the economy, how we can impact workforce, how we can keep our students in the state, how we can grow our own and keep those Iowa kids in Iowa. All those things I'm all in on. And we have work to do in some ways to continue to do better there. And so I've already spent a couple of days at the Capitol. I bet. I've done a lot of phone calls. I'm going to keep going back. I've been at events where I've had the honor of interacting with a number of these legislators. I'll continue to do that. And I would say, hey, let's and they've been great. I mean, they've all been great meetings and very appreciative. And I just believe if we disagree on something, let's talk about it. And we can agree to disagree. But again, I think we have a lot more interests that are common than different. And so that will be a big part of what I want to do this summer and next fall and then the following summer and the fall after that. And I have a great amount of respect for elected officials who want to give back to their community, want to be servant leaders, and they want to demand what we do is these are state-funded institutions that we're stepping up, and I have all kinds of respect for that, and so I enjoy that engagement and still getting to know a lot of people right on the front end. We're right in the middle of the session, a lot going on there, but I'm excited to kind of wrap this session up in the next month or two.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you had mentioned just about federally was we play this role as well just in the business community where certainly, we have work within the borders of the city of Ames, but certainly it goes out and, we work across 4 counties, and yet in a couple weeks from now, a delegation. We're going out to Washington, D.C., and we do this annually because a lot of our companies and even city governments, like, they want to have that voice at the federal level. So as, just as much as we talked about adjacency is important, it's certainly very easy to be interconnected across the entire United States, and certainly at scale when we're talking about the university and the impact that the research is having, then not only across the nation, but around the world.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. There are going to be policy issues maybe, or where other states, or even for me, other universities, might be struggling with something that we can learn from. That's why it's critical, and kudos to the Alliance for championing those kind of visits. I've been on those in the past. They're a great way for local community members to spend time together, but also to understand the federal perspective, because it's different if you haven't been there. And so I think it's really important to see what's happening there, to see what kind of opportunities there are for Iowa. So I sincerely, I really appreciate the leadership that you guys are showing to do that.
Yeah. Well, and Iowa State will be part of that. So that's wonderful as well. Pivoting, how important is athletics to a university? And certainly the president, I would imagine that you feel blessed coming from NDSU that certainly has success in collegiate athletics, and just being president there, that can translate to here as well, now that we're just concluding, the winter sports season and moving into spring, and then certainly looking forward to the fall as well.
Yeah, athletics is incredibly important to universities. They're important for the brand. They're important for the engagement. They're important for the student success. They help us recruit students. They help us engage with our alumni. They help us engage with our community, which leads to significant economic development when you have a home football game. And I said it helps with enrollment, and that's absolutely true. When an institution has success, you will see that leads to future success with enrollment over and over and over again. And so you can't decouple all of these things that are out there. And sometimes I think we spend so much time talking about sort of the 1% of students that are out there, and that's where NIL money is going and all the rest. And I'm glad that we can invest in our students through NIL and other means. I think that's critical. But, we need to also realize our student athletes at Iowa State are outperforming the student body in the classroom with GPAs. They are very involved, very engaged. They go on to be great citizens and give back to the institution. So there's a much broader group of students, athletes that are out there, and that's why, for me, it's fun to go to the football game. I haven't been to one yet as president, but men's and women's basketball, I enjoyed going to Cleveland to watch our men's wrestling. That was a lot of fun, but we'll be at all the other sporting events as well. So my message is athletics is incredibly important. I would tell you one thing I'm very proud of, to put an exclamation point on it, is before I left my last job, my last day in the office, we moved the football program up to a FBS.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I saw that.
Moved them to Mountain West, and our donors were behind that in a very significant way. The community was. It was overdue time, but it's hard to do that. And so proud to do that. And I think that will send the message that, to the community here, that's something I care about, because it's great for the university and it's great for those student athletes.
Well, we had Coach Dresser on the podcast last year, and I was a big wrestling fan this year, more so than any other year, and they were a lot of fun to watch. So that's really exciting. And Ames as a whole, but certainly the Iowa State fan base, they make it unique. I mean, Hilton is unique. Jack Trice is unique. It's a lot of fun to be a Cyclone.
Yeah, it's very special. Dresser, they got hit with the injury bug.
I know.
By the way, it was really bad luck. So you feel bad as an institution and a university. You want to win. That's critical. But even more, you feel bad for those student athletes who work so hard. But to your point, Hilton's a very, very, very special place. There's no question about it. I've been there many times, and Jack Trice and all the rest.
Did you ever have a nostalgia moment when in your first couple weeks, or maybe when you were interviewing, walking campus?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had a lot of them, probably, is the answer, candidly.
Yeah.
Even this weekend, my wife and I took the dogs out and ran them around, campus, and it's a pretty special thing. The beauty of Iowa State is, it's just overwhelming. The growth of the campus and the footprint. Probably one of the more fun things I got to do was go up into the Campanile on day one. I'd never been in the Campanile, and I played. I was the expert for a day. You asked earlier about surreal moments. I think that's one of those where you go, holy cow, so, but, I will tell you, I have those nostalgic moments every day, probably every day for the last month.
Keep having them. Keep having those pinch me moments. You you earned it. So give me a professional win from the last week or two. This is kind of narrowing the scope a little bit.
A professional win from the last week or two. That's a great question. For me, I think the professional wins have been, getting out and building relationships and listening to people. I know that's maybe a little more vague than you might have been looking for, but the more I can learn from them, the great things that we're doing about the research that's happening, that allows me to champion and advocate and connect dots for those on campus. And so I feel really good about this listening and learning that's happening already. That's with faculty, that's with staff, and it's been a lot of fun, starting to build, that kind of rapport with them, but certainly with students too.
Well, at a lot of events, because, we love the Cyclones here at the Alliance, we oftentimes end everyone with the Go Cyclones. So, President Cook, thank you for coming on this episode of the Area Podcast.
Well, it's been an honor. I look forward to doing more of these. Look forward to seeing you around. I look forward to working with the Alliance, and I'll say it, Go Cyclones.
Yeah, I like it. Well, for everyone listening, if you like this podcast, we would certainly love for you to share it and certainly subscribe. This is the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. Personal stories, professional journeys.